The silent battlefield. The stars were burning bright across the dark void. Countless ships from alien empires filled the battlefield. Heavy cruisers, fast attack crafts, and carriers all pointed their weapons at one another. Explosions still echoed in the distance where fleets had clashed just moments ago. But now, for the first time in many cycles, the battlefield grew strangely quiet. Weapons that had fired without pause suddenly stopped. Engines lowered their roar. It was as if the entire galaxy had held its breath. Commanders of different species stared at their screens in confusion. The silence was not planned. It was not ordered. It simply happened. A single signal had arrived, faint at first, then growing stronger. It carried no known signature. No empire could identify it. The codes were strange, old, almost forgotten. Ships scrambled to decipher the signal, but every machine failed. Every attempt returned the same chilling result: unrecognized origin. On the bridge of the Zorath Empire flagship, Admiral Kreth tightened his claws on the command chair. His second officer looked pale. "Admiral, the code does not belong to us, not to anyone we know," he whispered. The Admiral felt the same fear, but he kept his voice steady. "Keep scanning. Do not let your crew panic." Across the battlefield, other fleets whispered the same question: who had sent the signal? Why had it stopped the war? Some commanders ordered weapons online again, but no one fired. They all waited, because deep inside, something about the signal told them that firing now would be a mistake. Then the silence broke. Sensors began to scream. Long-range scanners picked up a massive object entering the edge of the system. It was slow, steady, deliberate. The object was not cloaked, it wanted to be seen. Commanders rushed to their displays, and when the first image appeared, shock spread like wildfire. It was a ship, but not like any ship of the empires. Its design was sharp, old, and unfamiliar to most. But to the oldest veterans of the galaxy, recognition struck like a blade. The whispers began. Human. The word moved from one fleet to another, carried on trembling voices. A human warship. Some officers laughed nervously. Impossible, humans are gone, exiled, destroyed, they said. But no one could deny what the scanner showed. The hull was marked with strange lines, human letters long banned in the Council archives. Its silhouette matched records locked deep in forbidden history. The ship drifted closer. Every alien fleet held position. Not one commander dared to move. Fear wrapped itself around the battlefield. Even the massive dreadnoughts that once shattered planets seemed small against the shadow of this one ship. Inside the command chambers of the Galactic Council, emergency messages poured in. Council members shouted at one another. Some demanded the fleets fire immediately before the human ship could strike. Others begged for restraint, reminding them of the ancient wars, reminding them of what one human ship could do. On the battlefield, the human warship stopped. Its engines went silent. Its weapons powered but did not fire. It simply hovered like a predator watching prey. The silence returned deeper this time, suffocating. Admiral Kreth's scales prickled. His officers looked at him with wide eyes. "Orders, sir," one asked, his mouth dry. The Admiral stared at the warship. He remembered the stories his ancestors told him, of humans who never surrendered, who turned hopeless battles into victories with courage alone. He whispered softly, "Do not provoke it." Other admirals across the galaxy gave similar orders. Fleets froze in position. Thousands of ships, millions of lives, all waiting for the first move. And still the human warship remained calm. Then a new signal was released. Not a weapon, not an attack, but a beacon. It pulsed across the battlefield, strong and clear. Every ship received it. Every translation device struggled before giving the same result. The message was simple, only 3 words: "We are back." The battlefield shook with silence again. No one dared to breathe. Some alien officers dropped to their knees. Others cursed loudly. Others prayed. The entire galaxy realized in that single moment that history had returned. The human warship stayed motionless, its weapons silent, its engines cold. Yet its presence alone was enough to break the will of empires. Fleets that had fought for decades now stood powerless, not against numbers, not against firepower, but against the memory of humanity. And so the battlefield remained frozen, every alien eye fixed on that one ship, waiting for what it would do next. The galaxy itself seemed to pause, as if the stars wanted to witness the return of mankind. Whispers of fear. The battlefield was still frozen. Every alien fleet silent, every admiral holding his breath. The human warship remained steady, like a mountain in the void. Its presence alone carried more weight than the thousands of ships surrounding it. Across the galaxy, panic began to spread. Transmissions carried whispers faster than light. Humans have returned, some said. The old enemy walks again. Others whispered. No one dared to speak loudly, as if the very sound of the word might summon more human ships from the dark. In the hidden chambers of the council, leaders of empires argued bitterly. One counselor slammed his fist. We cannot allow this. Fire now. Destroy that ship before it spreads fear. Another shouted back. Are you mad? You think one human ship can be treated like the rest? You think they came without reason? The memory of the ancient wars was buried but never forgotten. Stories told to frighten children, legends of humans who stood against impossible odds, who bent the rules of war itself, and who never surrendered. Now those stories returned, sharper than any blade. Admiral Kreth on the Zorath flagship felt the weight of history pressing down. His officers looked to him trembling. One whispered, Sir, if that ship fires, we are finished. The admiral's throat tightened. He remembered the words of his grandfather, who fought in the old rebellion. When you face a human in battle, you face death itself. The human warship still did not fire. It only released another pulse, this one deeper, like a heartbeat echoing across the void. The sound carried through scanners into every ship. Some officers clutched their chests, as if they could feel it inside their own hearts. Is it a weapon? One commander shouted. Is it a message? Another asked, but no one could answer. Fear grew heavier, pressing down on every bridge. In the fleets of the smaller empires, young captains begged their leaders to retreat, but retreating was as dangerous as advancing. Any movement might be taken as aggression, so they stayed still, locked in place, like prey caught in the gaze of a predator. Far away, civilians watching from news relays screamed in terror. Some fled to shelters, others prayed to their gods. Mothers held children tight. Fathers whispered stories of humans they had hoped were only myths, but the myths had become real. The council chamber shook with anger. One counselor demanded they send every fleet to destroy the warship. Another countered that such a move could trigger something far worse. One elder stood slowly, his voice tired but strong. You do not understand. One human ship can end wars. If there are more, the galaxy is already lost. The chamber fell silent. Those who knew the truth kept their eyes low. Those too young to understand trembled in denial. No, one whispered. It cannot be true. Humans are extinct. But the signal on the battlefield proved otherwise. Meanwhile, on the edge of the conflict, the human ship shifted slightly, engines glowing faintly, weapons humming softly, just enough to remind everyone that it was alive. And watching, every alien admiral snapped orders at once. Do not fire, do not move. The fear of provoking the warship was greater than the fear of each other. Whispers spread like fire among the crews. Soldiers spoke in hushed voices. I heard humans once destroyed a fleet with a single ship. I heard they fought until their last breath and still won. I heard they vanished because the galaxy could not kill them. Stories mixed with fear, legends turned into living nightmares. On one vessel, a young officer stared at the human ship through the viewport, his hands shaking. It is just one ship, he muttered. But even he could not believe his own words. Deep in his heart, he knew that one ship was enough. The silence stretched longer, the tension building with every passing moment. Commanders waited for a message, for a demand, for anything. But none came. The humans let the galaxy tremble under their shadow. Then, without warning, the warship opened a single channel. Not words this time. Not a beacon, but an image. Every fleet, every admiral, every council member saw the same picture. It was Earth. The blue planet of legend, glowing bright, alive, unbroken. Gasps echoed across the galaxy. Some fell to their knees, others screamed in denial. Earth was supposed to be destroyed long ago, erased from maps, purged from records, But the image told a different story. The human warship gave no explanation, no translation, only the silent image of their homeworld. It was enough to shatter the courage of entire empires. Admiral Kreth stared at the image with wide eyes, his claws digging into the armrest. "They never died," he whispered. His crew looked at him in horror. "What do you mean?" one asked. Kreth's voice was low, broken. "The humans, they never died. They were only waiting." The battlefield, once filled with fire and chaos, now drowned in fear and whispers. No one knew what the humans wanted, but everyone knew one thing. The galaxy would never be the same again. The Council in crisis. The image of Earth lingered on every screen. Fleets that had once fought each other now stared together in silence. The blue planet shone like a reminder, like a warning. No empire could deny what they were seeing in the vast chambers of the Galactic Council. Leaders of hundreds of species gathered in panic. The hall that once echoed with calm debate now shook with anger and fear. Voices overlapped, claws slammed against tables, tentacles waved wildly, wings flapped in rage. One counselor of the Veiled Dominion shouted first, "We must destroy that ship now, before more arrive." His voice cracked, his eyes wild with fear. A second counselor from the Korth Alliance hissed back, "Destroy? With what? That one ship silenced an entire battlefield without firing a single volley. You think your fleets will survive if you provoke it?" The chamber filled with arguments. Some demanded immediate war. Others begged for diplomacy. Many were too afraid to speak, but one word kept spreading again and again. Humans. On a raised platform, Elder Varn, one of the oldest members of the council, lifted his trembling hand for silence, his eyes heavy with memory. "You fools," he whispered, his voice soft but cutting through the noise. "You speak as if this is a new threat, but this is the oldest shadow in our history." The counselors fell quiet. All eyes turned to him. Elder Varn leaned forward, his scales dull with age. "I fought when I was young. I saw what one human fleet could do. I saw them break 3 empires in a single campaign. I saw them fight when their numbers were nothing compared to ours. They do not measure victory by fleets, they measure it by will." Gasps spread across the chamber. Some counselors shook their heads. "Lies," one spat. "The records show humans were weak, primitive." But Elder Varn's eyes burned. "Records lie. Memory does not." Across the galaxy, ordinary citizens watched the council debates through fractured broadcasts. Some cheered at the thought of humans returning. Others wept in fear. Entire markets collapsed overnight. Worlds whispered of rebellion or surrender before the humans even spoke a word. Back on the battlefield, the human warship remained still, its image of Earth still glowing across every channel, but silence pressed harder than any weapon. Alien admirals waited for orders. Crews whispered among themselves. Many feared the council would act in desperation and doom them all. Inside the chamber, the debate grew hotter. One young representative shouted, "We must send more fleets. We cannot show weakness." Elder Varn shook his head. "Weakness is not in fleets. Weakness is in fear, and right now we are drowning in it." A counselor from the Drax Republic slammed the table. "Then what do you suggest? Do nothing, bow to them, let humans rise again and crush us all." Elder Varn's voice was steady. "I suggest you remember why they left, why they vanished. We did not defeat them. They chose to disappear, and now they have chosen to return." Those words sent ripples of dread through the chamber. If humans were not defeated but instead had hidden away, then what else had they been building? What other weapons waited in the dark? A secret channel opened within the council, private messages flashing between the most powerful empires. Already they were plotting. Already they whispered of assassination, sabotage, desperate plans to stop humanity before it rose again. But even as they plotted, fear gnawed at their hearts. For the first time in centuries, the council faced an enemy they could not predict. Humans were not bound by the same rules of war, they created their own. They turned every battlefield into something new. That was why the galaxy had once feared them and why it feared them again. On the Zorith flagship, Admiral Kreth received the Council's confused commands. One moment they ordered him to prepare for attack, the next moment they told him to hold position. His crew grew restless. He finally growled, "Fools. They are afraid, and fear will kill us faster than humans will." His officers nodded silently. The human warship still said nothing. It hovered like a giant waiting for the galaxy to decide its fate. Then, as if to twist the knife deeper, it released another transmission. A single sentence, "Your wars. And tonight." The words echoed across fleets, across planets, into the council chamber itself. They were not a request, not a demand, but a statement of fact. The chamber exploded with chaos again, but no one could deny the truth. When humans spoke, it was never empty. Fear clung to every corner of the galaxy. Empires trembled, leaders shouted, and ordinary people whispered the same words again and again. "The humans are back." The first strike. The council chamber drowned in shouts. Fear pushed leaders into madness. Some screamed for war, others begged for surrender. No voice found balance. No voice found reason. The galaxy was tearing itself apart before a single shot was fired. On the battlefield, millions of alien eyes stared at the human warship. It had given its warning. Your wars end tonight. Yet no one knew what that meant. Would the ship strike? Would it destroy them all? Or would it vanish into the dark? Admiral Kreth stood on his bridge, his claws tapping against steel. He could hear the whispers of his crew, their voices trembling. "Sir, what do we do?" one asked. Kreth closed his eyes. "We wait," he muttered. "We wait for the humans to decide." Then it happened, without charging, without flashing, without warning. The human warship fired. A single beam of light cut across the void, silent, sharp, precise. It struck a Zath dreadnought, the pride of their fleet, the size of a city, armored with layers that no weapon had pierced before. In one heartbeat it was gone. The explosion tore through space, fire spreading across the wreck, debris scattering like broken stars. The blast shook nearby ships, crews cried out, alarms screamed, but no second shot followed. The human warship returned to silence, calm and cold. Every admiral froze. Their crews stared at their screens. Fear carved into their faces. One whispered, "One shot, one ship destroyed." Another trembled. "What kind of weapon is that?" The council chamber fell into silence as the news arrived. Leaders who had shouted with pride now stared at the report in horror. Even the most aggressive among them felt their voices die. Elder Varn whispered softly, "They did not strike a fleet. They struck a symbol. They showed us what they can do." On the battlefield, fleets scattered in panic. Smaller ships pulled away. Entire armadas shifted. Some tried to retreat. Others begged their commanders to fire back. But no one moved against the human ship. None dared. Admiral Kreth's officers looked at him. "Orders, sir." Their voices desperate. The admiral's scales shivered, but he answered firmly, "Hold position. If we fight, we die." The human warship glowed faintly, as if charging again. Panic spread like fire. Some captains shouted at their crews to prepare for impact. Others sent messages of surrender into the void, begging for mercy. But the warship did not fire. Instead, it sent another signal. The message was broadcast into every ship, every council chamber, every world watching the battle. The translation was simple. 3 words burned across every screen. "This war ends." Silence fell again, deeper than before. No one doubted the meaning. No one questioned the will behind those words. For centuries, the galaxy had believed wars were endless, that battles would never stop. But in that moment, one ship declared an end, and no empire was brave enough to challenge it. Still, in the shadows of the council, whispers of defiance grew. Some leaders hissed in anger. "They humiliate us," others snarled. "We cannot let them command the galaxy again." But none of them dared to move openly. Back on the battlefield, the wreck of the dreadnought burned like a grave marker. Its flames lit the faces of soldiers who once felt untouchable. Now they trembled. Now they prayed. The human warship had destroyed more than a ship. It had destroyed their certainty. In hidden corners of space, resistance networks began to stir. Some species felt hope instead of fear. They saw the human warship not as a conqueror but as a savior. If humans could silence the great empires, then maybe peace was possible, maybe change was coming, but the empires themselves only saw threat. They whispered of vengeance, of new weapons, of alliances forged only to destroy humanity once and for all. Even as fear ruled their hearts, hatred boiled inside them. Admiral Kreth knew it. He saw it in the council reports, he felt it in his bones. He whispered to himself, "The galaxy will not accept peace. They will turn this into war, and the humans will crush us all." The human warship remained still, like a judge watching a courtroom, its silence more dangerous than fire, its calm more terrifying than chaos. Every fleet waited. No one fired, no one moved, and across the galaxy, one truth settled into every heart, a truth that could not be denied. The humans had returned, and nothing would ever be the same. Old truths revealed. The wreck of the Zath dreadnought still burned in space, its fire floating like a broken sun. The battlefield that once roared with endless war was now quiet, a silence heavier than any explosion. The human warship did not move, did not speak, yet its shadow pressed upon every mind across the galaxy. Panic forced leaders into the archives. Ancient records sealed for centuries were opened again. Dusty data locked in forbidden vaults came alive. Council scholars trembled as they uncovered the old words, classified human war campaigns. One historian wept as he read, "They erased the truth," he whispered. "The council lied. Humans were never weak. They were never defeated. They chose to vanish." His voice carried fear and awe. On distant worlds, the story spread faster than light. Old soldiers whispered to their grandchildren, "I saw them once. I saw humans fight. I saw them win when there was no chance." Children listened with wide eyes. Mothers held their children tighter. Fathers stood silent with shaking hands. Elder Varn stood again in the council chamber, his voice steady. "You buried their history because you feared it. You taught the galaxy that humans were extinct, but deep inside you all knew. They were only waiting, and now the waiting is over." The chamber shook with chaos. Leaders shouted in denial, others begged for strategies, but fear twisted every word. No plan could erase the truth. The humans had returned, and their presence could not be hidden. Meanwhile, fleets across the galaxy whispered among themselves. Young officers who once believed humans were myths now read forbidden files. They saw images of ancient human victories, of fleets crushed by smaller human forces, of wars ended not by numbers, but by determination. Every word carved fear into their hearts. On the Zorath flagship, Admiral Kreth stared at the secret reports transmitted to him. The truth chilled his blood. "The council hid this from us," he muttered. His officers leaned close. One asked, "Why hide it?" The admiral's voice was low. "Because the truth would have broken us long ago." The human warship finally moved, slowly turning, its engines glowing with soft blue fire. Its massive frame casting shadows across nearby fleets. It did not attack. It only shifted position, as if reminding the galaxy that it was alive, awake, and watching. Another signal pulsed through the void. Not words this time, but a recording, images of battles fought long ago, fleets of alien empires collapsing before human strategy, soldiers retreating in terror as humans advanced, and finally, one image that froze every council member in place. It was a human captain, his eyes fierce, his uniform scarred, his voice steady as he declared, "We do not seek your permission. We do not need your approval. We fight because we must." The recording ended, the message clear. The humans had not returned as beggars or allies. They had returned as themselves, unbroken, unafraid. Fear spread deeper, but so did something else, hope. Across enslaved worlds, oppressed colonies, forgotten planets, whispers of freedom rose. People prayed that the humans would not leave again. They prayed that the shadow in the sky was a promise, not a threat. The council tried to silence the broadcasts. They ordered the image of Earth erased. They demanded the forbidden files destroyed again. But it was too late. The truth was already loose, and no wall of lies could cage it. Admiral Kreth stood on his Bridge, watching the faces of his crew, he saw fear but also something new. Curiosity, even admiration. He understood then that the galaxy's chains were breaking, not by weapons but by the return of one name, human. In secret halls, empires planned resistance, new weapons, hidden alliances, all desperate to crush the humans before they grew stronger, but their voices shook, their claws trembled, for every plan they made ended the same way, with silence and fire. The human warship hovered like a ghost of history made real, its silence louder than any threat, its calm more terrifying than any fleet. And as it drifted slowly across the battlefield, the galaxy understood the truth it had denied for centuries. Humans were not extinct. Humans were not defeated. Humans had only been waiting. And now, they had returned. The human choice. The battlefield was heavy with silence. Fleets still frozen in fear. The wreck of the dreadnought drifted like a burning reminder. The human warship hovered among the stars, its shadow stretching across thousands of ships. Every admiral waited for the second strike, but none came. Instead, the warship released a soft glow, a shield of light that spread outward. Scanners screamed with confusion, but no weapons fired, no ships exploded. The glow moved across the battlefield like a wave, shutting down weapons, disabling engines but not destroying them. Admiral Kreth's officers gasped. "They are shutting us down," one cried. Kreth narrowed his eyes. "No, they are stopping the war." His voice carried both fear and strange respect. Across the fleets, captains found their guns locked, missiles frozen, battleships powerless. No one could fire even if they wanted to. The battlefield had been disarmed in silence. The Galactic Council chamber exploded with panic. Leaders shouted, "This is conquest. This is control." But Elder Varn raised his trembling hand. "No, this is choice. They are showing us what we have become. Endless war, endless death, and they have ended it with a single ship." Back, on the human warship, a new signal pulsed through every fleet. This time words filled every translation system. The voice was calm, firm, and unmistakably human. "Your wars end here, not because we destroy you, but because we remember what you have forgotten. Peace is not weakness." The words echoed through bridges, council chambers, and civilian broadcasts. Crews stared in silence. Some wept openly. Others bowed their heads. The galaxy had never heard such defiance wrapped in mercy. Admiral Kreth felt his chest tighten. His claws trembled. "They could have killed us all," he whispered. "But they didn't." His second officer nodded slowly. "Then why return?" he asked. Kreth stared at the glowing warship. "To remind us," he said, "on distant colonies." Slaves whispered the message with tears in their eyes. Rebels carried the words across hidden channels. Ordinary people felt courage ignite. The humans had not returned as destroyers. They had returned as something far more dangerous to the empires, an example. But not all hearts softened. In the council chamber, younger leaders raged. "This is humiliation. They treat us as children. They cripple our fleets without firing." Hatred grew like fire under their fear. Plans for revenge already forming in the dark. The human warship spoke again. "We do not seek your throne, we do not seek your crown. We came back because the galaxy is drowning, and someone must pull it from the fire." The chamber grew silent again. No leader dared to answer. No admiral dared to challenge. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had been silenced, not by terror, but by the weight of truth. The warship slowly released the fleets. Weapon systems blinked back online. Engines hummed again, but no one moved, no one fired, because every commander knew that the humans had allowed them to breathe, and that mercy itself was more terrifying than destruction. Admiral Kreth turned to his crew, his voice steady now. "Remember this moment. Remember what mercy feels like. Because the council will forget, the empires will forget, but the soldiers, the people, they will not." The galaxy stood at a crossroads, divided between fear and hope. Some saw humans as saviors, others as threats, but all agreed on one truth. The balance of power was broken, forever. The human warship gave one final message before its engines roared. Choose wisely, for we will watch. Then its massive form drifted toward the edge of the system, leaving silence behind. And as the stars swallowed its shadow, fleets that once fought each other could only whisper the same words again and again. Peace is not weakness. The dawn of humanity. The human warship slipped into the darkness, its engines glowing like a fading star. Fleets that had once been enemies remained frozen in uneasy silence. No shots fired, no war cries raised. The battlefield that had been built for endless death now floated in strange peace. Admiral Kreth stood on his bridge, his eyes locked on the void where the human ship had vanished. His crew whispered among themselves, some in fear, others in awe. They ended the battle with words and one strike. One officer muttered, "Not with conquest, but with choice." Another added. Kreth nodded slowly. "And that choice will haunt the galaxy forever." Across the stars, news of the warship's appearance spread like wildfire. Entire planets trembled, governments shook. But among the oppressed, hope rose. Miners in forgotten colonies cheered. Prisoners in hidden camps whispered, "The humans are back." Mothers told their children, "You will not grow in endless war." In the council chamber, silence pressed heavier than before. Leaders who once shouted now sat in fear. Elder Varn rose again, his voice soft but carrying across the hall. "You see, now they did not destroy us. Though they could have, they did not take our thrones, though they had the power. They gave us something we do not deserve. A chance." But younger leaders snarled with fury. "A chance, no. They humiliated us. They crippled our fleets like toys. They showed the galaxy that we are powerless." Hatred burned brighter than reason. Whispers of revenge filled the chamber, dark plans forming in secret. Yet far from politics, ordinary people began to change. Farmers in the outer rings raised banners with human symbols long forbidden. Rebels painted stars with old Terran colors. Songs of resistance spread across colonies. The message repeated everywhere. Peace is not weakness. In hidden corners of space, ancient archives opened. More truths uncovered. Humans had not vanished because they were defeated. They had left by choice, leaving behind ships hidden in silence, waiting for the right moment to rise again. Whispers grew. If one warship has returned, others will follow. The empires feared it, but the people hoped for it. Hope was more dangerous than any fleet. Hope was fire that spread without ships, without weapons. Admiral Kreth walked through his silent flagship. His crew still shaken, he paused by a viewport staring into the void. "They did not return to conquer," he whispered. "They returned to remind us who we are." His second officer asked, "And what are we, sir?" Kreth's gaze stayed on the stars, children playing with fire, until the adults stepped back into the room. The galaxy now stood at the edge of a new age, the balance broken, the truth uncovered. No empire could erase what had been seen. No council could silence what had been heard. In dark rooms, rulers plotted to hunt humans, to build weapons greater than before. But in markets, in homes, in colonies, people whispered the same thing. The humans are watching. And somewhere, deep in the forgotten void, more shadows stirred. Ancient human ships hidden for centuries powered on, their systems waking, their engines humming, their eyes turning toward the stars. The galaxy did not know if humans would return as saviors or destroyers, but it did not matter. The fear had already changed everything. The hope had already broken chains as the stars shone across the silent battlefield. Fleets drifted apart. No war resumed. No battle reignited. Because one warship had ended it. Not with endless fire, but with a single choice. And across the galaxy, in every heart, one truth was carved deeper than history. The humans were back, and the dawn of humanity had begun.